Hello, John Bloodworth, Gentleman Crafter here with another Scan and Cut Saturday. This time around, I'd like to talk to you about self-intersecting paths. Now these cause a lot of frustration because basically when you're trying to weld or use one of the other process overlap features, you will find an error message come up if you have a self-intersecting path. Let's take a look. Okay, let me get the screen up. Now I've got a couple of examples here of self-intersecting paths. So basically with this letter E, we can see that as this comes around, it basically runs over itself. And again here, and again here. So that might cause us a problem later on. With the character 8, this won't cause us a problem because we basically have two circles inside this outer shape. If, however, we were to hand right, so a single line, the letter 8, and leave this gap open, we can see here that it is self-intersecting, it's running over itself. And especially with this swash here, you can see that each time that it passes over itself, it's intersecting. So basically that's what that means. Now, how can we get around it? Well, in this case, with this character, this was separated from some text that was entered through Canvas Workspace, and then I used the divide function to separate it up. This should now weld to something else. If it doesn't, what we could do is come in here, select the 2 points that connect these paths together, and move them outside. Those paths are no longer intersecting. Currently, yes, you do have some kind of overlap, but you could always correct this by bringing in a square, sizing it appropriately. Let's put that in there. And then welding these two things together. Like that. So you can see that's fixed that problem. Now with the 8, there is no real reason, to be honest, why you would want to weld this to something, but you might be under the impression that this is a closed shape that you wanted to weld onto the edge of something. To fix this, you could go in and simply move this path here, or you could also close that path by going into the path editing mode and closing that shape. That should theoretically now weld to something. So if I try that, there we go, it did. But you still have this self-intersecting path here that might cause you some problems later on. In fact, it's a big old mess in there. So it's actually divided itself, and that's corrected the issue, which is good. So if I undo that. Now with this one, this swash, there's not really much getting around it. If I try and use the weld feature now, you can see we get the error message 92001, blah, blah, blah. The selected objects include open paths or self-intersecting paths. So that's not going to weld to anything. If we try and close it, it's just going to connect this to this, so it might not make it look good. But one thing we might be able to do that might help us is if we create an offset around the outside of the line, and we delete the original thing, okay, so it's not letting me put an offset outline around a self-intersecting shape. That makes sense. So that's not a solution, sorry. Basically, that's something to look out for. The way of thinking of self-intersecting paths is, think of a roller coaster that's got a loop the loop. When that loop comes back around and comes in contact with that earlier section, that's intersecting. There are a few ways of working around it, as you've seen me do here, but generally it's really going to depend on the design that you've got and what you're trying to do with it. So I can't necessarily answer all of those questions. If you do come across that, then of course please consider reaching out. In the meantime, I hope that's helped you understand at least what that message means. Thanks for watching, and of course, before you go, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help out the channel and help it grow. And of course, remember to subscribe for more notifications about future videos from me.